All right, welcome everyone to this episode of the Arete podcast. As always, I am your host Jake, and I'm joined this week by a very good but new friend of mine, David Firestone. How are you doing this afternoon, sir?
I'm great, Jake. Thanks for having me on.
The pleasure is all mine. So as you may know from the title, David is what is the technical term? Is it a talent agent or
I get called many names, but the official name is talent manager.
talent manager? Okay, so that's the guy that we always see in movies and TV that gets his 10% for getting the actor or model their gigs.
Well, there's actually in LA, Los Angeles, there's two separations. There's the talent management group, which is I'm part of, talent management, and they usually commissions a little bit higher because they're doing more work to help promote the talent and all those things. And then the agent is the official, let's say, booking person. So you hear the term talent agent. They are monitored by SAG, and they're 10% is their commission in
Gotcha,
California. And I
gotcha,
think New York is similar, but other states are more wide open.
gotcha. And you'll have to pardon my ignorance. It's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on. There's a lot of this stuff that kind of gets thrown around in just the zeitgeist, particularly in entertainment. I always get the
Right,
sense that there's a lot of these jokes, sort of, that, industry insiders, and they're
right,
kind of for them. The winks and the nods for them that most of us just
right.
say, "Oh, that must be how it is." So you said you're more classified as a manager. So what is it that you do that, say, an agent wouldn't necessarily be responsible for?
Oh boy, that's a tough question because what's happened over the years, there's been a delineation of how managers and agents were set up, and now they have kind of moved together in many areas. But officially in the state of California, the talent agent is the booking part of the system. But now, what's happened over the years in the submission game and the casting game, both agents uh, can also, and managers can also submit. The difference is that agents are typically SAG franchise. They're franchised by the Screen Actors Guild, SAG AFTRA. And so they go through a process of becoming a franchise to them. And they also first have to go to the state to get a bond. So they pay a certain amount of money for a bond. And then they also, it used to be a stipulation to have an office and an administrator for an agent, but now it's been relaxed a little bit since COVID, right? Now, the management side of the house, to be able to do a little bit what agents do, which is submit talent, they have to go through the Talent Managers Association. If you look them up online, it's TMA, Talent Managers Association. You'll see their website, and we're listed as one of their talent managers, Talent Managers Association. And they vet you. They take a look at you, make sure you got all your act together. You know what you're doing. You're trained well. You know how to submit, how to manage, and you get a mentor, and they sign off on you, and then you're part of the Talent Managers Association. Obviously, there's dues involved in all those things, and then you go to breakdowns, and then they also vet you. So it's quite a vetting process here in Los Angeles. You go through to quite a few hoops to jump through that you don't anticipate when you first start this business. So it took us almost 9 months to go through that process. To get vetted by the Talent Management Association, get vetted by Breakdowns, which is the big organization where most of the films has to go through to submit films and series. And then there's another group called Casting Network, which is more commercial type submissions. So we submit on both those platforms, as do many agents.
Gotcha. All right. So, and my management would be very displeased with me because I have a very bad habit of introducing our sponsors at the top of the show.
Oh
Today,
boy.
this podcast is brought to you by The Road to Stardom with David Firestone and by our friends at Trophy Smack. We'll talk about both of those a little bit. Actually, we'll talk about yours right now because it's a
Oh,
big reason why you're here.
right.
Tell the people out there, we've mentioned it a little bit in passing across the network, but it's best to get it right from the source. So, what can viewers expect when they tune in to Road to Stardom with David Firestone?
What we're attempting to do is tell the real story, what the ins and outs of Hollywood. There's the good, the bad, and the ugly in any situation, right? I love quoting Clint Eastwood films, but there's a lot of great things going on in Hollywood. A lot of awesome people at the same time that really can help shepherd you, mentor you in this business. So our goal is to help provide some of that mentorship, describe how the acting business works in a comfortable environment, talking with actors already established, new actors. We're going to be adding directors on soon and different types of individuals to that will come later on during our podcast sessions. And at the same time, some anecdotes about the business, hopefully some enjoyable behind the scenes conversations and anecdotes about what happens behind the business in a nice way. We don't want to throw anyone under the bus here and have fun doing it at the same time.
Yeah, I will say, spoiler alert, I edit his podcast. So the first episode is out now, but as I'm editing it, I get to watch all the ones, at least the ones that I edit. So I'm watching this, I'm like, I already have 1,000 questions because just like any other industry, once you get into it, there's a lot
Right,
more than the surface level. And I'm
right,
only going to share some of those questions because some of them I know are going to be answered in the show. So you got to tune in for that.
sure.
And you can check out Road to Stardom. It's the first link in the description on this video, but it's part of the Arete Podcast Pantheon. So you can find it on aretemedia.org, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio. There's a lot of options out there. If you want to listen to it, you can easily find it. But I guess, and probably what the general, YouTube audience wants to know is, let's say I'm a kid, if you will. I'm a youngin, and I want to get my foot in the door in Hollywood. What's the best way to go about doing that, in your opinion? Because I know there's a lot of different ways, but in your opinion, what's the best way to really get your foot in the door?
Well, before you even come to Hollywood, depending on where you're starting your career, whether you've gone to theater school, all the different New York Film Academy, the different great schools that are around the country that actors and also directors can go to. They can go to school for these disciplines also. It really depends on where you're at. But if you're talking about, let's take the acting road specifically, and say you did some theater work in high school, you're considering a career, you may take some postgraduate work or go to college for it. In that process, whether you go to a film school or acting school for fine acting yourself, the best step is to go out there and get some in-camera experience. Because the theater is great. It's great to have that training when you're on stage and projecting, you do all those things. But sometimes it's as a transition moving from the theater acting to film acting. It's a little different craft, a little different way of doing things. It's still great to have that training because you learn how to talk and have very great diction in the theater field. And you learn how to interact with other theater actors and the audience, where film is more controlled. You have a camera crew, you have other actors, and usually you have perhaps just a scene with another actor, or you in a room or a studio, or you have a bigger audience where you're on a bigger film set. But it's a very controlled environment compared to the theater experience. So that's something to study either before you come to Hollywood, learn the differences, practice your craft. At the same time, get involved in student films. Go to your local community college, your local fine arts college. They're all doing student films. And there's a lot of local systems. I believe Backstage is countrywide, so you can get on Backstage, which is a system that a lot of students use to go on, and you have to be a little careful and watch what you're doing and make sure they're valid programs, valid films, but get some on-camera experience. Even if it doesn't look that great in the beginning in terms of the results, it's a great way to learn the film business. And maybe think of doing some things on the other side of the camera, where you're behind the camera, learning about production, becoming a PA assistant, learning how the production side, because if you can understand both the production side of the business and the acting side of the business before you come to Hollywood, it's going to help you out a lot. I see a lot of actors that come here, and unfortunately, they haven't done any work producing or learning the backside of the other side of the camera. And that can be very helpful, because then you understand the pressure that producers are under, that casting individuals are under to find that right talent. So it's very important to be punctual and be on time and do all those things. And sometimes actors don't always understand that process. So if you can learn that very early on, it's very helpful. I'll give you a really great example out of my own experience. When I first started the talent management business, I was an actor model when I was younger. Had to go back into the corporate world because of family responsibilities, and did that for a number of years. And when I first started the talent management business 12 years ago, I was a little not fresh in what I was doing. So what I decided to do even though I hadn't acted for a while on film, is to produce a film. So a bunch of our early talent that we had on board, one was a director, one was a screenwriter. We decided to produce their screenwriting on to film. And I did a little acting at that time. So that way it allowed me to produce a film, see what it was like to be on the other side of the camera, directing side, the producing side, and also acting the film. So it gave me a really broad experience. And it's very helpful for actors that come to Hollywood to understand that process. So those are important things. Then when you get to Hollywood, find a good team to work with. Those are some of the steps that you want to do before you even come here.
Yeah, so just a couple of things. I can speak personally about the difficulty of finding actors and why it would be a fantastic idea to get involved with student films, particularly if you're not in California. I would imagine it's a good idea regardless, but I know you
Yes.
don't know this about me, but part of my schooling was actually a it wasn't a film school, but it was a film and television program in
Nice.
an art school. And
Nice.
the hardest part, because I live in Indiana, the hardest part and why I dreaded those projects was because I knew I would need actors and I didn't know any actors. So
Right.
you have to get your friends, and your friends may not, as well as they may be intentioned, they're not actors. At least not all of them. You might luck
Right.
out and have a really good actor friend and ride their coattails to the top. I'm not one of those people. So I can speak to that. So yeah, even if it helps you, it helps the other people in the film program, absolutely do that. And then going back to your first episode, personally, as someone who doesn't want to be an actor but loves the entertainment industry and really loves seeing people succeed, I thought Sean gave some fantastic advice in his interview
Right.
that I had never thought about, and that was being versatile and being able to do numerous jobs on set. Like I know he has a background in race car driving, right?
Yes. Yes.
And
He
so
loves race car driving, so it's great to be in that background because it allows him to do stunts on set, and it helps his career, gets him into the door when he wouldn't be able to otherwise because of that stunt type experience. Not everyone has that, but you all have special skills, right? So
mhm.
that is singing or dancing or those types of things. A lot of the musicians do very well crossing over, or singers crossing over into the acting business because they're in front of audiences every day and learn how to memorize lines. So they make a very good transition coming here to Hollywood because there are many roles where they look for a singer. And especially on the commercial side of the house, if you've ever watched commercials, I'm sure you have, a lot of dancing going on in some commercials, sometimes singing. So it's good to have that versatility that Sean was talking about when you get to
Yeah,
Hollywood.
yeah,
And other
absolutely.
languages. And we have talent who know 4 or 5 or 6 languages. That's also very helpful.
Yeah, I would imagine that gets you in the door just by virtue of that in
Right.
more than a few cases. For example, I'm Spanish not being one, but for example, I know one of my top favorite films just that I love is Argo. They needed
Uh,
they needed about I don't know a dozen or so people that spoke Farsi.
right.
So I would
Right.
imagine Farsi, at least I know there are pockets everywhere, right? But I imagine that's not as common as say Spanish would be in the United States. So
Right.
you
Yes.
got to think that a lot of those, at least a few of those actors got those parts in large part because they could speak Farsi. You also have to act, so I don't want to take anything away from them. But
Right.
that's a fantastic point. And then the other thing, which Sean didn't say this, but I kind of took it this way, and it's great advice because, like I said, I'm all for people following their dreams, but sometimes, not mentioning anyone specifically, but sometimes people's dreams are a little bit not too big, but how do I say this? Like this fictional person might dream of becoming the next A-list actor, and that may not happen. That doesn't mean you can't have a wonderfully successful career
That's right.
in the entertainment industry. And Sean sort of touches on that in a way that I think a lot of people don't think about. So it's very encouraging, I would think, to somebody that wants to get involved in motion pictures, especially if they just love it as
Right.
an industry. It broadened it a lot, at least from my perspective. And like I said, I don't want to be an actor, but if I did, that would be very encouraging to me, especially in the beginning. Um, the other thing, like this sort of touches on the entertainment side of things, but I'm sure as a talent manager, you can speak to this. The perception that a lot of normal people like me have until they get a little bit wiser is that, you know, these extremely famous people that we all know, the A-listers, seem to come out of nowhere and get famous overnight. And see, you're laughing. We know that's not the case. Oftentimes, would you say it's about 10, 12 years
Yeah,
of
that's
just
pretty typical. I mean, not that it doesn't happen. Anything's possible, right? But in most cases, they've been at it for a long time. Look at Zendaya. I mean, you think she came out of nowhere when she got onto Euphoria? Well, no, she was actually in the Disney World for many years as a youngster, doing different TV shows and different things for Disney through her early years and then into teen years. And then all of a sudden she's on Euphoria. Where did Zendaya come from? Well, she's been doing it for 6 or 7 years prior to that. Same with many other actors, just like George Clooney. He was in a sitcom before he became that big star. He was working on ER. Before that, he was working, I believe, on one of the early Roseanne O'Donnell show. He was on that show. He had long hair. No one really recognized or knew who he was.
the
Then he had
true
the chance to
fans.
go up
Yeah.
to the ER show, and that gave a lot of publicity through that series. And then have the opportunity to go on and become Batman. That was his first big film role.
That one
So,
time.
and you think,
Uh,
where did Clooney come from? Well, he was in series for a while. So, lots of
hey,
people transition like that.
yeah, hey, all the true fans remember that guest spot in the Golden Girls.
Yeah, that's right. That is true.
That's a head turner when you see that for the first time.
That's true.
Obviously, living post George Clooney. I always loved that too. Going back because I watch a lot of old TV and older movies too, but usually well after the fact. Obviously, most of them were on before I was born, or at least way too young to appreciate. And seeing people that are famous now back then, it's wild. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. So
A lot
other
of
than
actors, just like Bruce Willis, who got their start doing background work. That's also true. And you can get typecast into that. But if you do a little bit of that, and there's nothing wrong with that, it helps pay the bills while you're here in Hollywood doing that kind of work.
Yeah, and so another kind of more contemporary question I had, and this is just something I want to know personally. I'm hearing a lot of people, you included, that are now, and I'm gonna forget the term, it's self-tape auditions, right? That's becoming more and more of the norm. Can you explain to the audience sort of a more defined definition? Because I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but how did that change? I know it probably changed during COVID, but what's the difference? And as a manager, do you think that's better or worse for the entertainment industry?
It's a plus and minus for the industry. And it started before COVID, a few years before COVID, it was started because former casting directors weren't using studios or having the budgets to have a studio included in their budget to do casting. So they started moving towards self tapes. And there's one big advantage for casting, and that is, back in the day when the actor in LA came into the casting office, they could only audition so many actors. And then when technology came to this advent of self-taping using a phone or doing Zoom or whatever on your computer, then it allowed casting to really look almost all around the world. Even though I think most actors for series are here in the U.S., but they're coming from all around the world now because you can self-tape all across the country and bring in actors. Because the casting, and you have to understand it makes a lot of sense from their perspective. They want to find the best actor for that role, whether it's what General Hospital likes to call under five roles, under five, which means under five lines, whether it's a reoccurring role or whether it's a top role. That's one of the star roles. They want the best actor because they want to sell that show. So they want the best actor for that particular role. I was just on a session with one of the big casting directors, and they were talking about the numbers. And the reality is, they look at 300 to 400 actors for an under five role to audition, and there are 2,000 to 4,000 actors which get submitted. So that's the kind of game that is going on here in Hollywood. The difficulty for actors, they don't have that ability, that chemistry, that many times can happen in a room. When you're in a room with casting, they will give you direction and give you changes. So that is kind of lost, unfortunately. And I don't think that's a good thing for the actors, but this is the world we're in now. Now, there is many times, most casting submissions will allow an actor to do a Zoom session rather than a self-tape where you're taking your phone or whatever and you're taping yourself and then sending the tape in through their system. You're actually doing it live on Zoom. So that is one thing that's going on, which helps because that way casting sees you live, so to speak, and also they can give you adjustments. So that is available on many casting role opportunities. Not all, but many of them than used to be. Ironically, that's the theater side of the house. When I say theater, I'm talking about film, TV, cable, networks, streaming. Commercials are actually doing more in-person editions than the theater side, which doesn't make sense, but that's what's going on. So you'll see that more often than you have in the past, which is kind of crazy. They still do a lot of self-tapes, but they do offer more in-person editions, which is kind of surprising. I'm not sure why that is exactly, but that's what's going on in crazy Hollywood.
It's a mystery. So this is about to be probably the hardest hitting question I'm going to have for you. Um,
Okay.
it's not that bad, but this is the common misperception, or I don't even know if it's a misperception. It's common perception,
Okay.
usually from the haters out there. But I think you're the perfect person to ask this question to. So we've all heard the cliche: "It's not what you know or how good you are; it's who you know." With
Well,
your
it's both.
it's
I hate
both.
to,
Okay.
it's both.
Because
Of course.
I was going to ask you, how true is that statement?
It's true to a point. I mean, it obviously helps to know the producer of a film, and you can give them a call and say, "Hey, I got so and so. What do you think?" But you also have to have talent because any major film, any large series, and I'm excluding short films and small independent films, which are more interested in getting their film out there so people get to know them versus making money off of it. But obviously, the bigger studios and the series and Netflix and the streaming platforms and Amazon like to make money off what they're putting up on their platform. And Amazon's gotten much, let's say, pickier than they have in the past with their film that they're allowed to have on their platform. So you got to have the talent. You need to have both. Look, there's no question. I know it's happened. I'm sure it has happened where actors have bought themselves into a big film, but they might appear once or twice, but then they're gone. It won't be a lasting career. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's not the way to sustain a career in Hollywood. The way to sustain a career in Hollywood is to perfect your craft, be excellent at everything you do, and then over time, as you build your resume and get in front of casting, that right role will come along that could take you to the next level. There are no guarantees in anything you do in life, right? With high risk comes high reward, but also can be you hit the bottom. And some actors that happens to them, right? So it's not an easy business.
Well, no. And then, so the other thing too, and I will go ahead and let you know because this question is going to sound weird when I say this, but I'm not one of the people that believes this, but this is again a common criticism of, say, Hollywood A-listers, and professional athletes are usually the biggest, victim of this perception, is that I'm sure you've heard it a million times, like, I don't understand why they're paid so much.
Yeah, I
And
know
part
it's
of
that is hard for even people like me in the business to accept sometimes because if reality is if you look at some of the really A-list actors, they're getting paid millions of dollars, and then the strong supporting cast is getting paid an eighth of that, male or female. So that is true in many high risk, high profile professions. And one of the reasons is because these studio films and they need this, they need to make money. They got to sell their film. So to sell that film, they need someone that's recognizable worldwide. And there are only so many of those actors that are out there. We know who they are. We see them on TV. We see them in the films. We see them at red carpet events. But again, what you have to keep in mind is they worked their way there. They didn't sit on their hands and do nothing. Just I mentioned George Clooney before. He worked his butt off doing episodic work before he got into the film business. And just like Zendaya, worked a lot as a teenager, as a kid, doing work that other children may not have wanted to do that or made that commitment or that sacrifice, because we could argue she lost a lot of her childhood doing that, right? So, because
I
when you're on set for hours. You have
yeah,
a tutor on set. You're not in a classroom. You're doing that stuff.
right.
So they've all made sacrifices to do the things they had to do to get there. I'm not saying just because you do that, you're guaranteed anything. There's no guarantees, but your percentages are much higher. Just like the great football players, they've been playing football since Pee Wee level football, right? And
Yeah,
then they
it's
kept
sort of
they started young. They kept playing and perfecting their craft, working harder until they could get to the top of the heap, so to speak. So
yeah,
it's frustrating on this end because you feel like, God, how are you going to get there? How are you going to climb that mountain? Well, it's step by step,
yeah.
step by step.
Yeah, that sort of goes back to the overnight success sentiment. It's like you illustrated it perfectly with the football players. It's like nobody gets to the NFL that started playing football their junior year in high school. That's just
It
not.
happens, but it's unusual
It's
for that.
okay, yeah. So that's certainly not the norm. I was gonna say,
No,
yeah, maybe that's probably not a true statement, but
Rudy, he came off there.
he didn't go to the
But I used to
NFL.
play football at least in high school. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. So actually, I changed my mind. This is the hardest hitting question, and this one might
Oh, yeah,
actually get you
no.
some. This one might actually get you some heat, if you're not careful. What's the best movie ever made?
Oh, come on now. That's just not acceptable. I have several best movies never made. If you can amend that to what my favorite movie is, that's also one of the best made movies.
That's what I'm getting
It,
at. What's your
I can
favorite
do that.
movie?
I can tell you that, and it's going
Yeah.
to go back a minute because I'll admit I'm a little bit of a horror freak, not slasher, but a horror freak. And I love Alfred Hitchcock as a director. And I thought The Birds was just for that time period when that film was shot, and the special effects that he had with the birds and everything else, that was just incredible. Because I watched that when I was a kid, scared the heck out of me. I'm giving my age away. Scared the heck out of me. It was a rerun, but it's still to this day that film stands the test of time.
Mm-hmm.
Many of
Mm-hmm.
Alfred Hitchcock's films do stand the test of time. I'm going to sneak another one in. Jaws, Steven Spielberg, and that is another one of my. I don't know if I can call it my favorite, but I think one of the best films ever made, considering the amount of special effects that it looks so real and so not fake. That he's just an incredible
Oh,
director and
yeah,
film.
oh yeah. But no, your answer of the birds actually both. It surprises me a little bit because the birds is an often overlooked or sort of
It is.
purposefully derided Hitchcock
I know
film.
for some reason I don't know why.
Well, I'm convinced that people that, talk trash about it have actually never seen it because it's a terrifying movie.
It is. It's so well done, and I'm not sure what their issues would be with it, but I
Well,
just look at
again,
the special.
I don't think people have seen it because I don't know how you can have a negative opinion of it, even if it's not your favorite. I don't really know how you can have a negative opinion of it if you've seen the movie.
And it
So,
may have been because I still have memories of a child, and that's why I was so impacted by
I
that.
mean,
I still have that thought about that particular film because I mean it's crazy how they did the special effects. And maybe some people were worried about what happened to the birds. Some of them didn't end up very well, but I don't know if that's what's going on. But I understand that part. But
I've never
that
heard
was,
I've never heard that from anybody, so
I'd
that's
be
not what I'm speaking
surprised,
to,
but
but yeah, yeah, maybe.
you
Okay,
never know.
I don't think you'll get any
Any
hate
hate off
comments
of
for
that?
that.
Any
No,
hate?
I don't
Any
think
hate
so.
off of that?
And I mean, the worst thing somebody can say about Jaws is they can say this. They can say that some of the special effects are dated. I disagree. I'm a big practical effects guy. I'd much
Yeah,
rather see mechanical shark that might be just a bit janky as opposed to a bad looking CGI one. But that's
exactly.
just me. That's just me.
Exactly.
Um, but
Oh my God.
It's that harkens back to an era of filmmaking where I don't know exactly what changed because again, I'm not an industry insider and I wouldn't be able to point to a specific shift, but this is a movie where on the surface it's about these guys trying to get this shark. But it's not that at all. There's so much more to it. Even
Right.
the side characters are layered and nuanced and they're given 110%. Nobody's
There you
phoning
go.
it in. Yeah,
There you go.
everything is
It's
just
the camaraderie. It's everything about the film. It's the family part scenes. We got Richard Dreyfuss is incredible, and so with many of the other actors in that film were just amazing. And
yes.
it's
It's
really
a
that kind of a
fantastic.
film that stand again. It was a genre that changed filmmaking, as
Yeah.
did Alfred Hitchcock's films. Had a great impact. Now, obviously, there's Gone with the Wind, but that's kind of like okay, it's a great film, but it's not something that changed the film world. I mean, it was great for its time, but I just think that other films now that really had an impact. And of course, you could talk about The Exorcist,
S-
the
So this will
first
get
one.
so this will
That
get
was
me hate.
insane.
Yeah. Yeah, this will get me hate now. The Exorcist is The Exorcist is one of those movies where I totally understand. I totally understand how it was terrifying when it came out.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, Today, I've said this more than once, today I can watch that entire movie and the opening scene of Scary Movie 2, and they're essentially the same thing to me
yeah, yeah. They're kind of like something to laugh at.
anymore. But I definitely respect The Exorcist and what it did. It's just over the passage of time, it just doesn't hold up as well as it did. And that's I'm not going to say it's a shame because that sounds like it blames them, and you can't blame people making films in the 70s for things not holding up. They were working with what they had. So you can't.
Right,
It's
right,
like people that make fun of Star Trek for the janky special effects. It was 1966. What do you want from
right. Exactly.
'em? You
For
know?
that time period, it was pretty incredible. I mean, and you know, they had they had oxygen tanks in the theaters. They
Oh,
had
during The
portable
Exorcist, yeah.
for exorcists. They had portable. People were passing out in the theater. They needed oxygen. It's like what's going on? There was nothing like that before.
Yeah.
I don't know how
So
we got to this story. I hope you don't get much hate mail on this.
nah. If anybody will, it'll be me because I'm the one that naysays The Exorcist. I still don't get me wrong. It's still absolutely worth seeing. It's just comparatively speaking, it doesn't hold up as well. But
Well, it's like
here's
Gone with the Wind. Gone with the Wind is worth seeing, but it doesn't really hold up because the whole that whole thing is not it's not that way anymore, right? But um, the same with The Exorcist, but it still is a classic horror film. And what I like about it is the underlying aspect of it, where it just scares the heck out of you with nothing really even going on,
yeah.
because they had just incredible actors and great photographers on that set. So
Yeah,
anyway,
and it's iconic. You can't argue with that. But this is the part where I'm going to let you plug yourself a little bit. So your agency, your management company, Firestone Talent, what separates Firestone Talent and why should a prospective actor or entertain because you work with models and you said you're starting with directors too, correct? I got that right?
well, we almost started with actors.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, myself? Oh, I was a model and actor. Yeah, I did do some modeling. That's not necessarily what we're looking for. We do models are very good for commercials because they have certain different looks that commercials are looking for. But our focus from the beginning has always been actors. We have some really great screenwriters and also directors. Now, most of the directors we have on now are also our actors who also started to direct. And we so right now we don't really represent just directors because we have our hands full with actors. So I think our standout is that we really care about our actors and we really help mentor them with their craft and train them. We provide coaching. We provide our own list of headshot people to go to that are separate from Firestone Talent, but do great headshots. Reels. We also have people who help with reels. So we provide. I hate to use the word full service. There's nothing like a full service situation, but because we can't. It's impossible. One management firm cannot do that. But we believe in it. It's a team effort. Everyone has to chip in. and be supportive and move forward with things.
So at this point, because before I let you plug yourself much more, I want to make sure that are you looking for more talent to
You
represent,
had
or are
to bring
you
that up
pretty?
again, didn't you? I was trying to avoid that. I didn't want to say no because but we're always looking. And the reason I say that is because we do have quite a few talent now, but we're always looking for different looks, different types of actors, because you never know, we might find that one special person that could make a difference for us. So hit us up, say hello, be happy to, regardless of whether you're right for Firestone talent, we're always happy to talk to someone and lead them on a different path if it's not right for us. So yes, we are
Absolutely.
always looking, keeping our eye out for talent, great talent. The one thing I will say is we focus a lot more now on those talent that have credits already versus developmental talent, because we have several of those already. But again, if you're young and you're looking for some help getting into the business, we're still your team. It's just a matter of the right look, the right situation, all those things. We have to evaluate early on to see if it makes sense. Does that sound like a good answer?
Absolutely, because the sort of the goal with this particular podcast that we're doing right now
Right,
is, if somebody's aspiring to be an
right,
actor or an actress, what tools do
right.
they need? What steps can they take? First step you should really do after you're done watching this one, of course, is go and subscribe and watch Road to Stardom, and you'll get a lot of tips and
That is true.
advice, and it's all free. And you'll get to know David a little bit better. And like he said, get some credits. So those two things you can start doing right out of the gate.
That's right.
Um, Now that being said, this is more of a because the other thing about the Arete podcast, I don't know, are you familiar with the word Arete at all?
I think I've heard it.
Okay.
Not totally familiar with it.
So Arete doesn't have a literal translation into English, but essentially, and at least it has a lot of definitions too, but the definition I like and the reason I named my company this is because Arete is an ancient Greek virtue
Oh,
in which it's the virtue of being excellent at everything you do. Doesn't
I'm
mean
sorry.
be.
You did tell me that. You did tell me that once. I'm so sorry.
Oh yeah, I think that was on Toon Talk actually when you
Yes,
were on,
we did.
which you
We
can.
did. I'm so sorry. You
Oh no,
did tell
you're
me that.
fine. You're fine.
I'm remiss for not remembering that.
It's for the
That's a
viewers as well.
that's a great name. I love that. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and the reason I like it though is because it doesn't necessarily mean to be the best, period. It means to be the best, whatever it is you're doing, you be the best that you can possibly do.
I
Because,
love that.
for
Yeah.
example, I'm not a runner, but if I chose to run a marathon, I my RTA in that moment would be to run the best marathon I possibly can. I'm probably not going to win, but it's better to try and do your best than not do it at all. But that being said, there are people out there who may be hesitant to try their hand at acting because they may feel that they don't fit the mold, so to speak. And
That's
what advice would you give those people if they're passionate and love it, but they're just a little scared that they might not fit the mold, so to speak?
all I can say is follow your heart. What is your heart telling you to do? Don't worry about what you don't restrict yourself. I have actors who was like, we get them an audition. It's like, well, why do you think you can't do that? What are you talking about? You're an actor. Stretch yourself. Step up and just give it your best shot. If you fall short, it's not the end of the world. You have a new experience now that you can be part of you, part of your personality that you can use for other areas of your life, even if it doesn't work out exactly the way you'd like it to.
Yeah, and there's a ton of stories of people, even Hollywood, maybe not A-listers, but names in Hollywood, names that you would recognize. People that audition for one part and then they don't get that part, but they get offered another one, and it turns into a career-defining moment.
Are
And
you the manager? You're becoming the manager? We're changing with juxtaposition here because I just had a session with the casting director, and that's exactly what he said. They actually will audition a talent, and if they see something in that talent, they'll put them on a check, they'll put them on the list, and they see a role that they think may be a better fit because they don't really know until they see the tape whether it's the right fit because we all have different personalities. And for that particular role, it just may not be the right fit for whether it's the type of personality, the look, the interface with other actors, or what they want to see. So I think that's an excellent point, and
Yeah,
thank you for bringing it up.
and yeah, no, absolutely. And then, and I don't mean to disparage because I'm going to use her as an example, and I'm not saying anybody's ugly. Don't hate me for this, but it's a great example because she's had an exceptional career and she's one of many. So you have like your people like Kathy Bates, for example, who don't fit the typical, female A-lister lead mold
Right,
that people perceive to be there. However, Kathy Bates has been in a ton of movies and she
that's right.
kills it. She kills it. Everything I've
She's a
ever
great
seen her
actor.
in, yeah,
Great,
everything I've seen her in, she just nails it. And
right.
it's more common than you think. Another one I can think of is, say, Steve Buscemi, who, again, doesn't fit the typical mold of what you would consider like a Hollywood A-list actor, but
Right.
he's got a lot of credits. And I don't recall ever seeing him in a role where I felt that he wasn't a good fit at all.
No,
He's
it's
got,
very true. Just look at Joe Pesci. Who would have thought, right? And he was acting and discovered in New York as a waiter. And he was acting again before he started acting, before he got on the big, the Goodfellas. He was also an actor for years. People don't really, they think he was discovered as a waiter. No, he was acting before that. So, but he didn't come
oh,
out of nowhere.
little secret there. I'm sure the story of the discovered waiter reads better, but yeah.
It does. It does. Someone I may get hate mail on that one. Maybe it's true.
Hey, it might be. It might be. Let me ask
uh,
you this though, going a bit
yeah.
lighter side, a little bit more fun. Are there any movies coming out that you're really excited for?
That I'm really excited for um, currently. Well, the ones I was kind of in Megalopolis. I wasn't. There's a lot of kind of mixed press about Megalopolis. I wanted this. I don't know if it's still playing. I wanted to go see it, but I haven't seen. So I was good because it's probably going to be one of the last big films that great director, you know, completes. But I want to go see that one if it's still playing or when it comes onto a streaming platform of some kind. That's what I was really interested in seeing. In terms of what else is happening right now, gosh, that's a good question. What's out right now?
I know it's funny. The only reason I ask it come to mind is because
That's a good question. I'm struggling because I'm so into talent and
isn't it
submissions. Sometimes I forget what's even playing right
yeah
now.
isn't it strange though that we live in an era where all that information is easier than it's ever been to get, and yet
Right,
like when somebody asks you, you're like, well, wait, what's it's very rare in the past, I'd say 3 or 4 years, that
right.
other than just worldwide phenomenons like Spider-Man No Way Home, those kinds of giant ones where somebody can ask me like, "Oh yeah, what are you excited to go see?" And I'm just most of the time I'm like, "Oh, what's playing?" I'd have to look.
Right.
I'd have to
I
look.
mean, I'll admit that some of the films that are out right now aren't really my. I mean, it's like Venom's out right now. It's not really my cup of tea. And nothing wrong with the film, I'm sure, but I'm more of a old school kind of film type guy. And I know the Spielberg's where I mentioned him again. He's working on a new project, kind of a horror, not a horror, but some kind of sci-fi type thing he's working on.
Oh,
There's been
okay.
some talk about that, but that's way early pre-production. So I'm a little stuck in a little bit in a time zone sometimes myself because of the era that I was really watching films a lot. And I do watch. I try to find time on Amazon to watch. There's so many choices on Amazon Prime and on Netflix to watch in my quiet time. But when you're a manager, you're so busy. Just there's so many great new shows out, like Outpost, and Apple TV has so many different shows out that you lose track of the names because you're always looking at submissions and the names of these new shows. And God, if I tried to remember all those names, I'd have to go to breakdowns and look at the names. Oh yeah, that show, yeah. And I'm curious about Wolves. That's on Apple Plus. Don't have Apple Plus right now. I should get that. And we wonder how the whole Clooney, thing with Brad Pitt went, how that came down. So
Hmm.
those two always do great together. So I didn't really answer the question very well.
Oh, no, you did. The reason I bring that up, and of course I'm forgetting the name. Our mutual friend, our good friend Max,
Yes, Max.
he had recommended that I go and see the movie City of Dreams, and I did. But I was in the theater and I saw a trailer. Kate Winslet is starring in a new biopic set in the Second World War. And I'm really ashamed right now because it's the name of the photographer that's the title of the film, and I know who the photographer is. And I'm sitting there, and by the time the movie, and don't get me wrong, City of Dreams is a great movie, but
Right.
I'm more excited to watch the Kate Winslet movie because
Right.
some of the shots, just
That
some of
part.
the yeah, some of the photographs they replicate in that film are iconic photographs that I've seen in history books. And Kate Winslet, in my humble opinion, even though she's a big name, I still think she's underrated as an actress.
Yeah, she's a great actor.
I mean, just phenomenal. I
And
just,
I'm glad you brought that up because there's a new documentary, and I'm having trouble struggling, but I think it's going to the film festival circuit first. AFI is this week. American Film Institute has their thing up at the Chinese theater through the 27th. They have a lot of great films showing, and there's a docu series of John Williams,
ooh,
the great composer, and Spielberg was there, and I think he was involved in the project, as was I think Ron Howard was involved, and another great director who directed the docu series, so a documentary. But I'm not sure if where it's playing first. I think it's going through the festival circuit. I'm not sure. But that
yeah, I'm not.
sounds like a very interesting film to go see. And of course,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, we also produce films, or not Firestone Town, but Firestone Films produces films, and we have a co-production with a director we just wrapped up last year. Actors Are Just Like Us. It's a docu-film shot at the iconic Cafe Roma in Beverly Hills, which unfortunately is closed this year. But that's life. Been around for a number of years, and Sylvester Stallone and a whole bunch of people used to hang out there a lot. Arnold Schwarzenegger. So it's a very iconic spot. We filmed in one of the private dining rooms there. It's a great film about actors just talking over a meal. And we're in the process of getting that out in the film circuit and also looking at potentially selling the film. So hopefully people get a chance to see that.
I know I would like to. And that
Darn
leads me
well
to,
better go watch it.
absolutely. No, yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned that because our dear friend Max did
Yes.
not inform me that
Well,
Firestone Films existed.
I know I should have mentioned that earlier. That's a misnomer on me, but you know, we talk our bread and butter is the talent business, obviously.
Sure.
But we also have Firestone Films, an entertainment group, Inc., where we produce mainly short films. But David Firestone himself has been a producer, and that is the production side of my hat, producer side of my hat, which we also work on, which allows us to bring actors into our own films and co-productions. We co-produced with a company called Mindatorium.com, which was a different name. It was called, of all things, Dirt Merchant Films. Now it's moved to Mindatorium.com. Don't ask me why. It's a long story. But we had over a third of our actors in their films. And a lot of our younger actors and some of our SAG, our union actors. So we always are continually, and that's another thing that to tout our horn, so to speak, is that besides the talent side, I, Firestone Film producer David Firestone, we also produce films that we always try to get our talent into, depending on what type of film it is and what the character is for the role. So that's an advantage that not all management firms do that. Some do, some of the bigger ones do, but some don't. So
Yeah. And then you've brought up SAG-AFTRA a couple of times. For anyone
I,
watching who may not know, could you give a brief, because it's a union, but could you give a brief explanation of what that is and why is it important for an actor?
well, Screen Actors Guild, and it combined with another theater, a TV type group called AFTRA, and now it's called SAG-AFTRA. They combined, God, I think almost 10 years ago now, maybe longer. And they're the union for the actors. So to get into the big films, the SAG films, the studio films that you see on TV, like Venom, the majority of those actors, except for the background actors and some of the smaller supporting roles, are union actors, SAG-AFTRA actors, because they work with the studios, SAG works with the studios to make sure they're following the guidelines. They help protect the actor. They have health insurance programs, all those things, and protection for actors when they're on set. Their pay scales, all those things are negotiated by SAG with the studios, with the AMPT, American Movie and Television Producing Group, AMPTP. And that's when they had all those negotiations earlier this year over pay scale and AI infringement and those things. So they're the group that you eventually want to become part of once you become a more established actor.
And I know there are many processes in which you can do this, but generally speaking, how does one normally become a member of the Screen Actors Guild?
There's really only two ways. And the most common way is vouchers. And there used to be a piece of paper, but now it's electronically done. And they are given to actors on set, usually background actors who are on set and they need to become SAG to be able to perform in that particular background role, where they have so many SAG vouchers they have to give that are available. It's a tricky system, so I don't want to mislead you. I don't know all the ins and outs of the vouchering system.
Sure.
SAG could give you a better read on how that voucher system works, except that they're electronically given out by the payroll company when you get paid, and you get a voucher. And they have non-union vouchers and they have SAG vouchers. So the SAG vouchers, you have to get 3 of those. And that proves that you were on a union set and you worked as a union actor for that particular show. And so you need 3 of those, then you qualify to sign up for SAG. And there's dues. The nice thing about SAG is they have payment programs, so you can not have to pay that full amount when you first join. And you work out based on what your availability is to your finances are to pay on a monthly basis, but you become SAG right away once you start paying.
Gotcha.
The only other way, the only other way is the Taft-Hartley Act, which is a law which went into effect quite a few years ago. It kind of was a way to get around the union really quickly if you had to have that particular person, right? And so and we just had that situation very recently where an actress from another country, she's here now. She has a work visa. Excuse me. And she's non-union and didn't have vouchers. And they really loved her tape because you can audition on union shows as a non-union actor because they want to find that best actor. So it was a co-starring role, maybe 4 or 5 lines. On a new series coming out. I can't talk about it. I'm under NDAs, but it's a new hot series that'll be released soon, and
I was just gonna say, I'm not sure how much you can talk about it, but yeah.
I'm not mentioning any names here.
That's when you have to go. It's like it's a person who's doing a thing that. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna mention casting person's name, but then I may give it away, so I'm not even gonna do that. But
so okay, look out for that, everyone.
It's well known, but they basically decided they loved her, they needed her. They went through all the paperwork to clear on the work visa part, which she already had, and they Taft-Hartley'd her in. So that immediately made her, in one day, SAG eligible. Now, just to give people out there listening some perspective, over 12 years, that's happened twice under Firestone Talent Man.
Yeah. So basically, don't get your hopes up on,
don't
it's rare.
Get your hopes. I'm sorry, I'm moving things around.
No,
don't
you're
get
fine.
your hopes up.
Yeah, it's
my shirt coming through.
The good thing is your background looks like it's coming in.
That. It does happen. In fact, when I mentioned we did a film when we first started Firestone Talent. You can do it also by producing a film. And we produced a short film at that time. Now the numbers have changed since then. But at that time, we could produce a film for a minimum of $5,000 on a SAG new media. And we were able to Taft-Hartley everybody in with at least a union actor on set. You had to have at least one union actor. And those numbers have changed since then. I think the the rate is larger now, and all those things in terms of the production budget. But that's what we did. So I'm actually SAG eligible. I never become SAG because I'm a manager. I don't need to be SAG.
Right, right. Um, Trying to think. I know you answered most of my personal questions, but I want to leave a little bit for the people that watch Road to Stardom. But I do want to let
Yeah, you're giving it
everybody.
all away now.
Yeah, yeah, we're giving it all away for free. We're pushers though. We got to give them a taste, but we can't give it all away for free. But I do want to let everybody know about our other sponsor of today's podcast, our good friends at Trophy Smack. And I also want to take this
Trophies.
opportunity to let everybody know, if you know, you know, the Artie Awards are coming up, and our friends at Trophy Smack provide all of the trophies and the championship belt for Podcast of the Year. So we
Wow.
thank our friends very much for that. And everyone on the network is eligible for Podcast of the Year. So that means you
Wow.
too, David.
All
You're
right.
eligible. And
I'm going to work
everybody,
hard for that. I want that trophy, man.
yeah, everybody who wins, I shouldn't say everybody, anyone who wins Podcast of the Year gets a custom made belt from Trophy Smack, several color schemes, but you don't have to win an Artie Award to get them. You can visit our good friends at Trophy Smack, second link in the description, and get any of their custom championship belts made, custom printing, tons of color options, but also you can get some more fun. Like their biggest seller, believe it or not, is their loser belt for their fantasy football leagues. Um, but custom trophies and rings and all that good stuff. So visit our friends at
Awesome.
Trophy Smack. But I will let everyone know, David, you're actually going to be eligible for a few awards this year.
Wow.
Everybody's eligible for Podcast of the Year, but since you debuted this year, you'll also be eligible for Best New Podcast. And
Wow.
since you have interviews, you'll also be able to nominate an episode for Best Guest, and then the general ones like Best Episode. There's a lot of awards to go around, so
Wow. Fantastic.
absolutely, there's more information coming out from that. And
That's exciting.
I know you have to leave very soon, but my last question for you is there any other wisdom, advice, guidance, anecdotes that you want to leave for anyone who, has the dream of going to Hollywood and, working as an actor or talent?
Oh boy. I would say follow your heart, do your diligence, start working now, start reading everything again, everything about films, watch films, read about acting, do everything you get your hands on. And it's going to take a while. It's going to take a lot of steps. But the key is to never quit, never give up. Because so many people are some close, some come so close, and then that last step, they quit for whatever reason. Don't give up. It may take a while, but keep going and
I
have fun.
just,
Enjoy
yeah,
the process. Enjoy the process on the way there because it can go really fast. So
yeah.
enjoy the process.
I saw a meme just the other day, and I know it's an older one, but it was the first time I'd seen it. And it's a drawing of this miner who's got a pickaxe and everything, and this long series of tunnels with nothing. And then there's like an inch of dirt right in front of a ton of diamonds. And the guy with the pickaxe had just turned around and slouched away looking all sad. And that's so true. You just got to keep doing it because I think anyone who's ever succeeded at anything will probably tell you, for the most part, that if they'd quit when it got hard, there's no way they would have ever gotten to where they were.
That's right. And you never know who you might meet along the way that will help you. So always go out there and meet people, talk to people. Don't be afraid to speak up. And just like our great friend Max, I met Max at a dirt merchant film screening in Venice Beach. And it's supposed to be this is a funny story. I'll make it real quickly. It's supposed to be a white party. Now, if you know anything about David Firestone does not wear white. Okay. It's just maybe a white shirt, but that's about as far as. And everyone, I went there in my black attire, and it was a spring day on not Malibu. I think I said it's Manhattan. It was a Manhattan Beach or somewhere over there. And I was the only guy there in just dark outfit. But it worked, and I met Max, and here we are. Here I am sitting in a podcast room, kind of, with Jake. And I never would have thought in a million years, meeting Max several years ago, that this is what will be going on. Life has a
Yeah.
lot of twists and turns. So you also have to be willing to change and go with the flow. And some other opportunity which you love just as much as acting could hit you in the face and say, "Oh boy, I really love that actually more than acting. I love making films. I actually love being a producer." So just keep at it, and the path will take you as it does, and God willing, and as the universe guides you, keep at it.
Well, that advice is too good to not end on. So, like I said, I know you're a busy guy. You got things to do. So, thank you very
Right.
much for your time. I very much appreciate it. I hope everybody who watches this appreciates it. I do want to, however, create a little bit more work for you if you'll indulge me. So,
Certainly.
anyone that's got a problem for, because obviously, if you're watching this after the live stream, you might have some questions. Anyone that's got a question for David, leave it in the comments. I will get it to him and he will answer it on Road to Stardom podcast
Oh
eventually.
God.
I don't want to
Seriously?
give you like a list of 20, but yeah,
Of course I will do that. Maybe. No, I
if
will.
they're good questions, they got to be good
I will.
questions.
Thank you so much for the
Yeah,
time,
no,
Jake. It was wonderful. I'm hoping it helps people that are out there listening, because I know what it's like when you're young and you're whatever age you're at and you're trying to make choices about your career and your life. It's good to watch and get different people's opinions. Hopefully the information was helpful for
it
whoever's
was
listening.
certain. It was certainly interesting for me, and that's at the end of the day, that's all that matters for this podcast. This is very much my fun podcast where I talk to people that I want to talk to and ask questions that I want to ask. And if people
Right.
find it engaging, great. If not, I get something out of it. So it's a win for me. So,
Right.
well,
Thank you,
David,
Jake.
thank you very much. And everyone, will see you next month on the Arete podcast. And don't forget to check out Road to Stardom with David Firestone over on our sister channel, Pantheon Podcast.